Welcome to From Moment to Movement. I'm your host, Tamara Banks. The U.S. is at a critical point in its history. Millions of Americans are rallying, demonstrating, protesting, and yes, even rioting to make their voices heard, particularly Black Americans. Racism is steeped into the very core of this country. And now, in 2020, Black voices are tired of being ignored, muffled, and killed. We're experiencing an important moment. African Americans need this moment to march, protest, cry, pray, to be heard, and evoke change. From Moment to Movement hopes to provide a platform for Black voices. A movement has to arise from the ashes of the moment. From Moment to Movement is a series of one-on-one conversations with members of our Black community aimed at giving a platform to hear their voices and experiences and work towards changing our systems. Our guest today is Amy E. Brown, co-founder of Black Lives Matter 5280 and a community organizer in Denver. Amy, thanks so much for being here. Great to see you again.
Good to see you, Tamara. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Now, Amy, you have organized marches, sit-ins, rallies. You've attended and organized vigils to memorialize unarmed people who've been killed by police officers. Something feels different about this moment, I think anyway. How do you feel about what's happening in your city and across cities across the U.S. and really all over the world?
I agree. I do think something feels different. I was hesitant to name that or say that out loud. I didn't want to jinx it for quite some time. I think for fear that the moment would die quickly and people would soon move on. But it definitely seems like more white people, especially more white people than ever, have become awakened to the truths of racism in Denver, the truths of racism in our nation, in our history, in the world. It seems that young people are showing up in streets in a prolonged way that we haven't seen before. So I'm seeing people activated for much longer than I have before, and people who I haven't seen before. And I'm also seeing really shameful tactics in response from the police to these people who are being awakened to our histories in this country with racism.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the new allies that are coming forward. Certainly we've had white allies before, but there's a different set that maybe folks that we wouldn't necessarily have seen in the past. And also Roger Goodell, president of the NFL, when he comes forward and apologizes and wants to do better than the NFL has done in the past. That says a lot when big corporate people who don't have to make any change are stepping forward. Who knows what his heart really is, if this is maybe a business move or maybe he really does feel like it's time to change. But nevertheless, that's huge, don't you think?
I don't know, Tamara, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's huge. I think if Roger Goodell wanted to do something huge, he could start very quickly with Colin Kaepernick and doing right by Colin Kaepernick. So statements made by people with huge platforms and billions of dollars, action is quite easy for someone like Roger Goodell. Action is quite easy for someone like Jeff Bezos. These billion-dollar companies who are pledging to stand with Black communities. Statements are easy. So I'm really looking to see when and how the action begins, if in fact they're going to let Black voices and Black leaders be at the forefront of those actions, because sure, I suppose it is kind of unprecedented to hear someone like Roger Goodell make the statement he made, but we're way past that. We're way past statements. We're looking for action, and for someone with as little to lose as he has to lose, it's long past time.
You raise a really good point because obviously actions speak louder than words. You know, I mentioned to somebody that I was this whole moment in time that we're experiencing is leading up to a movement, or maybe they were in the middle of that movement. Somebody asked me, when did this moment start? And I've heard people say maybe really started in this particular moment and moving towards a movement was when Black Lives Matter was formed. Can you talk a little bit about what you went through, the thoughts that went through your head in putting together Black Lives Matter 5280, and why that was important in 2016, right?
2015, yeah.
2015. Mm-hmm.
You know, I think we in Denver were not isolated at all from the national cries that were heard with the murder of Trayvon Martin, the murder of Michael Brown, the murder of Tamir Rice. Um, many have been shocked to see the treatment of George Floyd and the murder of George Floyd. However, a lot of us, this is one in a very long series of nightmarish videos that we've seen. And in Denver, it was important for us to let the world know we're not isolated from this reality. We're not safe from police terror in Denver. We have a list of victims in Denver who have not found justice, whose families still live in a city where the officers who murdered their loved ones are employed as public servants, no less. So it was very important for us to find a way to channel our energy, our grief, our pain into action. And within the Black Lives Matter global network and within our Black Lives Matter family, we found a way here in Denver to lift up the victims of police terror, like Marvin Booker, like Jesse Hernandez, like Michael Marshall, like Paul Castaway, and so many names that should never have to be named in this way. But it was important for us to lift up those voices as part of the national outcry in that movement.
Right. And you mentioned people will often say, well, you know, they were high or drunk or unemployed or what have you. Not that that justifies somebody being killed for not dimming their lights. But when you look at Brianna Taylor from Louisville, Kentucky, and she's not only in her home, but she was an EMT on the front lines of saving lives with this pandemic. So this notion that, well, you shouldn't have been out anyway, you should have just stayed at home. We're not even safe at home.
Right. That's when I heard the story of our sis Brianna Taylor, as a Black woman, as a mother, I put a post up of, imagine trying to go to sleep at night. Imagine trying to hold your baby in bed, knowing that a no-knock warrant had police kick in her front door to the wrong residence and shoot her 8 times in bed. Shoot her 8 times in bed. Imagine trying to go to sleep. So yeah, it really, the murder of Brianna, the murder of Ayanna, that sweet baby, so many years ago. I believe she was 8 years old when Ayanna was murdered at home in her bed because of a no-knock warrant. You know, it's not hyperbole when we say we're not safe anywhere. We're not safe in our cars, in our streets, in our neighborhoods. We're not safe at home in our beds. And that's a shocking reality to try to sit with, let alone sleep with at night. But it is the truth. And I'm heartened that America is learning the story of Brianna Taylor and starting to appreciate the reality of not feeling safe in your home, in your bed.
You know, of course, we're hearing criticism of the protests that have turned into riots, and people have said violence should not be stopped by more violence. And I know a lot of us have heard this quote from Dr. King recently, that violence is the voice of those who've not been heard. Can you share with me your thoughts about the rioting and looting that's happening across the country?
You know, I'm not here to critique the way that those in pain, those who are grief-stricken, those who are experiencing terror, I'm not here to critique the way they mourn, the way they choose to act in the streets. They have been treated with violence their whole lives. Poverty is violence. Hunger is violence. Policing in America often looks like violence. So it is not for me to come down on people experiencing trauma for the methods that they employ to make their voices heard. If it were my baby, if it were my daughter, if it were my son, if it were my family, I would break and burn everything in sight. That's just the truth. I would break and burn everything in sight. If someone barged into my home with a no-knock warrant and murdered me in my bed like they murdered Brianna Taylor, I know that my friends and family would have a lot to break and a lot to say. And I don't condemn them for that. So I think really we focus on the wrong issue. We focus on the wrong violence. What are the systemic forces of violence that have built up this rage in people where they need to smash something, they need to break something, they need to scream so loud that glass shatters. I understand that. And I certainly won't condemn it. There are business owners in Minnesota who have said, let my store burn until these people get justice. And I really, those people who understand that human emotion, human loss, terror, grief supersedes property damage, supersedes loss of material things. I'm in solidarity with those people. It's not for me to critique the methods. There are agitators out there who do things to get headlines and do things that put actual protesters in danger and put Black people who are grieving in danger. And I certainly don't advocate for those methods, but otherwise I'm not gonna come down on the methods of those who are in trauma and taking to the streets to get change for all of us.
And to underscore your point, it's interesting that often critics of that type of pushback are the same people who were more than okay with Kaepernick being fired and not getting his job back ever. And others who have done peaceful protests, like taking a knee, and constantly criticized, lost their jobs, maybe even relationships were at risk. So the peaceful protest is criticized and not heard, and very little, if anything, changes. And then you move to the community's just wanting to take mainstream white Americans, shaking it by their shoulders. Listen to us. This is a real thing. Mm-hmm. And so I understand what you say when it's like, maybe if you didn't hear me when I was kneeling, maybe you'll hear me when the stores are burning down. And again, like you said, it's I'm with you. I'm not here to critique it or place a judgment on it, but I have heard the voices of critique about burning down the Target in downtown Atlanta or other places more or louder than the voices that are outraged by innocent people being killed. And when I say innocent, a headlight out, a tail light out, not dimming your lights when you're passing a police officer. Those are not reasons to lose your life.
Not at all. Not at all. And, it really, as much as people have to say about property destruction, about looting, quote unquote, or rioting, quote unquote, I will say without those, we wouldn't have had as many cameras at these protests as we have. Without those cameras and news coverage, you wouldn't have seen journalists attacked by the police who were sworn to serve and protect. And without all of that coverage, we wouldn't have so many people who were not aware of the truth of violent policing seeing the tactics used. So, cameras follow these flames. These flames have helped bring eyeballs to the problems that many are protesting now. So, a lot of our awareness has been raised because of these methods that a lot of people are criticizing.
You have a little one now, a 1-year-old. Tell me, what kind of world do you hope that she grows up in?
Oh, goodness. I hope, oh my goodness, I hope I'm able to create for her, even if it's just our own little insular world, a world where she knows the feeling of freedom, where she can be a child who runs and yells and plays and takes up space and makes her voice heard and can be ridiculous and strange and silly and curious without fear of being reprimanded for daring to take up space, without fear of being reprimanded for daring to be her true self, whatever that turns out looking like. I hope she feels free to explore all the facets of her identity. And if I can just create that world for her in our home, that's a huge victory. I'm fighting the fights I'm fighting now in the hopes that she won't have to. I just want her to experience being a child in the ways Tamir Rice didn't get to be a child. I want her to be able to be a child in the way George Floyd's daughter is being robbed of her childhood now. Those are the things I want for her world. Just the freedom of childhood and joy and exploration and weirdness, whatever sorts of weirdness she wants, because that really is privilege.
Right. Absolutely. Amy, thank you for your time. You are just a wealth of information and insight. Is there anything that you'd like to add that you feel like America, white America, all of America, the world needs to hear that they have yet to hear at this point?
Sure. Thank you for allowing me to do so. I invite white America into this conversation. I invite white America into the streets for this fight. We need them in the fight. We can't do this alone. That's been shown for centuries now. And I invite them to stay home also and do the reading. Do the reading about the work that's already been done. Read the historical work about movements before now, movements leading up to now, so that you're clear on the work that's already been done. You're not arriving to a new party. This has been going on for quite some time with people who look like me leading the work. So come to the fight prepared to learn and prepared to follow. I invite you to the fight prepared to mess up, prepare to make mistakes, learn, and come back to the table and do it again. No one is perfect in this fight, so I just invite folks to be ready to learn and listen. And I would really encourage people to find ways to give locally. I know there's a lot of generous donations being made at the national level. I want to assure people that there are in states across the nation and in, I believe, the UK and Canada, there are chapters of Black Lives Matter who could use your direct giving on the ground locally. I encourage people to find local sources to give donations to so that we can really use your generous giving to advance the fight for racial justice in our city, in our state, in ways that will most directly impact the marginalized folks here in Denver, in Aurora, in Green Valley Ranch, and beyond. Those are my asks for the white folks joining this fight.
Great. Thank you. And I appreciate your time so much, and much respect to you, my sister. You take good care of yourself and that little cute one.
Thank you, Tamara. Good to see you again. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us for From Moment to Movement. You can find out more about this program at pbs12.org. I'm Tamara Banks. We'll see you next time.